Hi, everyone. My name is Carl Mall, and I'm the technical project advocate here at FINOS. Welcome to the FINOS Q3 Fall Community Call. For today's agenda, we're going to start with some welcomes and call to action, followed by updates from several of the FINOS members, including a intro and board updates from Gab, announcements from OSFF from Grizz, and then an overview of some developer events from Olivier, followed by announcements from CCC, from Project SIGs and community updates from CCC, SDLC, GitProxy, and COM. Going into our welcome and CTA, we're very excited today. The big calls to action that are going to be throughout this call today are going to be around OSFF is coming up. So you're going to hear lots about OSFF and that we have several deadlines for members to get their free tickets and deadlines for registering and getting your tickets. We have some hackathons. We have a hackathon coming up in a couple of weeks, which you'll hear more about. And the deadline to apply to that is fast approaching. So please pay attention and have your QR codes ready. And then a number of calls to action also around projects that are looking at contributors to come and join. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Gab for community and board updates.
Thank you, Carl. And thank you for all of you guys joining. We have now over 160 people on the call. So I'm glad I brushed up and I got ready for this call. I wanted to try and stay on time. Hope you guys can hear me okay, but there's been so much happening over the last couple of quarters. And I figured that for those of you who are not in London in June, I'll be able to also give you a quick update as to what happened throughout Q2 and Q3. First and foremost, our landscape and community continues to grow. Carl, if you want to click, that's clearly a build here. Not only from the standpoint of the open source projects and open standards, we've seen a lot of progression in new projects coming in. Calm is probably one that you're going to hear about quite a bit today. And at OSFF, we have OpenGriz was contributed by Citi. We have our AI governance framework who continues to develop. I'm going to share a couple of the announcements that we had in London at the end of June. But I think what's Carl hinted to it, what's also very interesting is that this year we've been running several hackathons. Over 1,500 people joined, and that's a figure from June. We continue to run those, and it really seems to be a great way not only to get very busy financial services folks focused on contributing upstream, but also to engage globally your developer population. A couple of these hackathons were in India. We just completed another one with NatWest, I think last week. So it's been very interesting to see how hackathons are not just about building sort of new proof of concepts, accelerating innovation, but also contributing to the existing projects. Next slide. If you want to click through. Obviously, we have a lot of new projects coming in. The inbound continues to grow. I think we're well over 60 projects and SIGs right now, but we are laser focused on delivering sort of concrete value. The best proxy for value is adoption. So our most mature projects continue to grow in terms of their flywheel and the network effect. We've had over 10 sort of public statement of adoptions for the likes of FDC3. The CDM is certainly growing fast in terms of its adoption within digital regulatory reporting, but beyond in other use cases. And in Q2, we also were proud to see GitProxy, which we hear about from today, being activated, therefore, as a sign of not only multiple contributing entities, but also adoption. There's also a case study out there in case you're interested. Next slide. I figured that I'll share with you, you might have seen messaging around FINOS focusing on a new vision. And so I figured that I'd tie it for you. The first few years, for those of you who were here since we started in 2018, we're really focused on enabling financial services to be a first-class citizen in financial services. And obviously, there's still a long tail of organizations above and beyond our now over 100 members who are still undergoing the journey of enabling their developers to participate to open source communities. So we will not forget our core mission of enabling what we call open source readiness, but we know that there's a lot of material that we now produced between our training, our certifications, tools like GitProxy, which enable again, this organic engagement from financial institutions, all the way from sort of evaluators to leaders in financial services. But as we now see a lot of the projects being adopted, if you want to switch to the next slide, together with the governing board earlier in the year, we carried sort of forward a set of strategy sessions and offsite. And that has resulted in the idea of really setting a new mission and a new vision for the next, say, 5 to 10 years of our next horizon of growth. And whilst our original charter was to effectively enable open source in financial services, we think by a large extent, this is now a reality. And so this is time to turn our mission on its head and use and leverage open source to deliver commercial ROI to this industry in the forms of profitability, resilience, and innovation. We know this is an industry that is very much ROI driven, probably the most ROI driven. And so we will be laser focused as we move forward, again, to deliver not just to the technology organization, but to the business, and making sure that we are able to not only to realize that value, but also surface it and making sure it is widely understood at C-level. So you'll see a lot of that from us. And look, the early signs, yeah, please, next slide, Carl, that was good timing. Then this slide shows that there is already a lot of understanding. This is a small sort of press brief from the last quarter. We've had some major statement of support from the likes of Bank of America, of RBC, particularly for what was our Common Controls for AI announcement. We welcome several new members, including Accenture, Hitachi. I don't want to single out anyone here, but if you want to check it out, we have QR codes for our most recent member announcement, and also the chair letter from Bhupesh Vora, our new chair, who got appointed in June from RBC. We're very excited to see these early signs of every constituency in the industry yielding and harvesting value out of FINOS. Next slide. Where are we seeing this value in terms of the early signs? You can build this full slide. It has become very clear that an area where not only it's important for organizations to factor in open source in their risk management, but also where open source itself can provide a solution is actually risk, and particularly tech risk. This is an area where we're seeing the most traction according to both the contributions that we see and the adoption. But obviously, we won't forget our Open RegTech initiative, the CDM being the cornerstone of it, but we also have, of course, Open OS Climate working on physical risk. So we think that open source really provides a new paradigm for open regulatory technology. And this is an area where we all can collaborate. It's generally pre-competitive. It's a massive item on the bottom line. And so that's what we'll see. We are seeing actually the first sign of that very concrete ROI. Do you mind going to the next slide? So I figured I'd give you, for those of you who have not been at OSFF, this already feels a year ago, but it was actually just end of June, just before summer. But as we build to OSFF New York, which is in 3 weeks from now, it's important for you to know that we have a 1.0 version of our governance framework, which is now probably much further ahead than this announcement that we did in June. Next slide. But we also, and that's where our differentiator comes in, we also don't want this just to be best practices documented on a web page. As you're probably familiar with our Common Cloud Controls project, we did a major announcement in June where we announced that we would build on top of the Common Cloud Controls approach by codifying the AI governance framework controls. And I think before I move on, the critical factor here is that we're bringing together both financial institutions and technology vendors. You see the 3 cloud service providers there, shifting left their collaboration in a way that they can build controls together in the open. And that effectively is a win-win, because the banks are able to leverage an industry-wide framework that they can also evidence back to regulators. The CSPs are actually able to work against one single framework versus massive 16,000 line spreadsheets of controls from every single financial institution. So that's where we see the potential of open source as a positive sum game. Next slide. It's not all about controls and risk. I think you might have seen this slide in some of our previous keynotes or on the internet, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'm surely not saying anything surprising by saying that open source is playing a critical role in Gen AI, and especially in the agentic AI era that we're living right now. And so if you go to the next slide, Carl, I wanted to try and put together for you guys all the different components that FINOS has into potentially building a great platform to build open source AI components or financial services. I'm not going to go through the layers of this diagram, but the two things that I want to say here is that we have standards and data and frameworks across all the levels of the stack, including one that we'll be announcing at OSSF very soon around process automation and orchestration. I really recommend you get signed up if you can join us in New York. But all of that, as you see on the right side, will be wrapped into financial services ready controls frameworks, architecture as code, as well as obviously the AI governance framework that we just talked about. In closing, my last slide, if you want to move to the next, we are doing a lot of work in open source AI. As I said, we continue to have our AI readiness SIG as a sort of entry point for incubating ideas and conversations where then, we fork off or stand up projects. For example, the AI governance framework was born out of that. There are now conversations around responsible AI, but we also want to be focused on building open source AI for financial services use cases. And that's where the Applied Gen AI group comes into place. You have QR codes on the right side. If you want to join, pull up your phone. And then lastly, we're also looking at funding specifically our work in open source AI for financial services through the creation of a supplemental fund and a dedicated AI governing board under FINOS. More on that soon, but if you are interested in funding and supporting that effort, you have the sort of QR code on the bottom right. And with that, I know it was a whirlwind, but I tried to stay around my 10 allotted minutes. Thank you so much, Carl, and thank you all guys for being here.
Thank you, Gab, for that really great and informative presentation. Heading over to Grizz to give us some announcements about OSFF.
Cool. Thanks, Carl. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Here's a quick update on OSFF New York, which is going to be October 21st and 22nd. The Fulbright program has been live for a while and is structured on 5 tracks over 2 or basically a day and a half. So you can go as deep as you want to within this conference. But first, I want to thank our leader sponsors, the Confidential Computing Consortium, FinOps Foundation, and Red Hat. Without them, I've said this in my podcast, that this is a very expensive conference to put on in New York and London. And we really appreciate our sponsors because many of our members get to attend for free. So as you see in the slide, if you are a FINOS member, you have a certain allotment of tickets that you can attend for free. And the time to register is now, because in less than a week, those free tickets will go away. So register by October 7th to join for free. Otherwise, it's $575. And if you can find another financial services conference in New York for $575, please send me a link to that. Anyway, so register here. If you do not have your code to register, if you're a member, please reach out to osff@finos.org and we'll help you out. The schedule is there and we have workshops coming up. But I want to talk a little bit, go into detail. Can you go to the next slide, Carl? About the tracks. And quickly, we have 10 tracks. The first day, all of our tracks are centered around the value and ROI of FINOS. So we have a Launchpad track, which talks about our incubating projects. We have the Forge, which are new ideas that are coming up. We have the CDM, the Common Domain Model, FDC3, and open source readiness. On day 2, we've saved the majority of our AI talks for day 2. So we have a day 2 AI track that's basically on AI for the developer. And then we have another one that's AI on policy. Plus, we have 2 security tracks, one from the Confidential Computing Consortium, and then one where we paired up with OpenSSF. And we have talks from FINOS people as well. If you're for security or AI, join those. Then we have a hot topics track. This year's new, all lightning talks, all 15 minutes in, out, and many different topics. If you go to the next slide, please, Carl. So we announced new keynotes yesterday. We announced new workshops yesterday, and we announced the 2 new tracks that I just mentioned. If you're going to be in New York during the week of OSFF, and whether you were joining OSFF or not, you can attend our workshops. We have one on agentic AI. It's a little more closed just because it's very specific tabletop exercise. But on Tuesday, we have the FTC3 sale workshop. We have also the SDLC controls and financial services workshop, which we will have some folks talking about that today. And then on Thursday, we have an AI reference architectures workshop as well. So definitely join those workshops if you're in town. We've got a great list of keynotes from Accenture, Fidelity, Fannie Mae, from Citi, from Block, from RBC. Check that out on the website. And next slide, please. And again, I would just want to put this up here for redundancy's sake. Go ahead and register now. Check out the schedule. Join the workshops. And members, you have less than a week to sign up. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. And we really appreciate, again, our sponsors. We appreciate our community, our maintainers, and all of you being here today, but we'd love to see you in a couple of weeks in New York. Thanks a lot. Oh, I got something else. Go next. Apparently. Okay. We have the old community call today. Free member registration ends on the 7th. And other events that we have going on, we do have a FINOS open source hackathon with AWS that's in New York from October 14th through 16th. BMO will actually be doing an internal hackathon, this hybrid, but it's specific to BMO. And then OSFF. And I'd like to go ahead and announce right now that on June 25th in London next year, that is the day for OSFF. We'll have registration coming up and sponsorship available soon. Okay, thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Grizz. So everyone, do your call to action and make sure you get registered for OSFF. Now handing over to developer events with Olivier, FINOS Field CTO.
Thanks, Carl, and hello, everyone. So at FINOS, we believe that one of the best ways to drive progress in fintech is by empowering developers to experiment, build, and contribute to open source projects. So today, I'd like to spotlight an incredible opportunity for you to make a real impact in our mission. The Open Source in Finance Hackathon, organized by FINOS and hosted by AWS. So why it matters? This isn't just another hackathon. It's really a chance to collaborate with peers, tackle real-world challenges, and contribute to open source projects that are shaping the future of finance. When is it? October 14th and 15th, 2025. It is in person in New York with remote teammates. Welcome. Registrations are still open, and we curated some challenges for you. 4 tracks, exciting tracks, each centered around a FINOS open source project. HTC Grid, FDC3, TraderX, and OpenGrease AWS plugin, which is an extension of what OpenGrease currently offers right now. So if you want to work on one of those tracks, really, I encourage you to participate. What is it? What is in for you? First, the impact you're going to make. Your code will contribute to projects used by leading financial institutions. The networking, to connect with industry experts, mentors, and like-minded developers. Prizes is to compete for recognition and the chance to showcase your work to the FINOS community. And last but not least, the fun. It's 2 days of intense collaboration, learning, and innovation. Register now, sign up your team by October 5th. If you can't because you're not located in New York, spread the word, share this opportunity with your network. And if you can attend, be prepared, start brainstorming ideas, reviewing the projects, and assembling your dream team. Any questions, drop them in the QA section, please. Next slide, Carl. CDM Masterclass. So yeah, recently over 2 intensive hours, we explored the what, why, and how of CDM. For those new to the concept, CDM is the Common Domain Model, an open source standard that defines a common representation of financial instruments and transactions. If you aren't able to join us live, don't worry, the full recording is available. Just scan this QR code. And whether you're a CDM pro already or just a CDM curious, this masterclass is really packed with insights and actionable steps to help you leverage CDM in your projects. Thank you all, and back to you, Carl.
Great. Thank you very much, Olivier. And echoing Olivier's notes there, please definitely spread the word on the hackathon. Would love to see as many of you there as possible. Also echoing what Olivier just said, please feel free to use the Q&A box. I believe we are on track to have time for Q&A at the end, but if you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to utilize the Q&A box in the Zoom chat. Great. Now over to our projects and SIG updates. We've got a great series of presentations from community members today, and I think you'll find that they're all thematically relevant and resonant with each other. So really excited to hand things over to Eddie Knight to give an update on Common Cloud Controls.
Oh, hey, Carl. Thank you. If you want to cue me up with some slides, I think we had a nice team effort to slam as much information as possible into the visuals. You can now choose between reading or listening. If you manage both, send me an email. I want your autograph. The stuff that we've been doing in Common Cloud Controls has been moving along very steadily over the last couple of years. The goal is to really share in that pre-competitive work that all of the different financial services institutions are needing to do. We have several different use cases where we've seen this creating value, but we are looking for more case studies all the time. So if you are somebody who's able to get value out of sharing the common control catalog definitions, using and accelerating your work through the pre-creation of definitions around test assessments and security controls and cloud taxonomies, things like that. We really want to see you coming out and engaging with the community, and feel free to reach out to Rob, whose email is on the screen, if you have anything that you want to learn more about. I think we have a couple more slides here for those who are reading inclined. Is this a segue into the CC4 AI stuff, right?
It is.
Yeah. So we're really excited to be able to support all of the different initiatives across the Linux Foundation. And the way that Common Cloud Controls is doing it is so far proven to be extremely effective. But anybody that can come out and help out and get some hands on keyboards is going to be able to make it that much more impactful. We'd love to see you out there in the community. And we have more reading. Okay, this is great. Thank you, Carl, for prepping this. We have some releases that are already available, that have been available. We're expecting this list that you see right here to triple in size come the Finance Forum. So if you are attending talks at the Finance Forum that are related to Common Cloud Controls or CC4 AI, there's going to be a lot of really big news. If you are already involved in the contributor community, you will have seen loads of PRs getting merged and loads of progress happening recently. We're just really excited about this, and even more excited to be able to show it off here in a couple of weeks in October.
And then the last slide we have is just our call for contributions.
Awesome. Thank you for preparing this, Carl. I actually really appreciate that. Scan that QR code, reach out to Rob, reach out to myself. We are very used to helping folks through. There's a load of different approaches, user personas of folks that are both contributing to and benefiting from Common Cloud Controls. So if you'd like a little bit more of a hand-holding custom experience with getting involved in the project, please do reach out. We're very used to that. We're all friendly, and just looking forward to see you guys getting involved. I think that was the last one, Carl.
Yes, sir. And I can definitely echo Eddie and all. We're a very friendly group, and you should definitely join some CCC calls and help with contributing there. So thank you very much, Eddie.
Thanks, guys.
Next, we're going to hand over to Aaron Searle and Toby Weston from Deutsche Bank to talk about common SDLC framework, which shares a lot in common with the previous group. And I'll let them go ahead and explain.
Okay, the Common SDLC framework is a new working group that spawned out of the DevOps Automation SIG. around the July time. It came about from a common recurring discussion we had been having around a problem we were seeing and an opportunity for sharing and reuse. So the problem space is similar to AIGF and CCC. There's a need for standardization in the definition of SDLC controls, the risks that they address, and even the implementation in terms of how you might measure them or how you might adhere to them in a given product set or product suite, or record those events. Because what we see today is this is toil that's repeated across different institutions. There's a drift. Every group has to reinterpret the same things. And of course, likewise, every vendor has to go through the same process as well if they're trying to adhere to the same controls. This is a huge amount of work. Repeated, we figured that if we could try and come up with a solution, we may be able to help all of those parties, be that engineers writing the code to demonstrate controls compliance, management trying to report on control compliance or define new policies and procedures, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea that we came up with is, what if we had a catalog? What if there was a bookshelf of these common definitions, the risks that they mitigate, already defined? And I use the word catalog specifically because you don't need to pick a book that relates to your area the most. There's no way that all institutions will be exactly the same. So you use the ones that are most appropriate to you. Anyway, moving on. So we kicked off a workshop earlier in the year where we sat down and discussed this problem, hosted graciously by DB, to try and see, is this something that we see? Is this something that we think that we should tackle? Spoiler alert, we decided it was. We went through a couple of particular controls, discussed some of the overlaps and some of the problems with those overlaps, and found that not only did we see it as a problem, but it wouldn't be a very easy problem to solve. There was enough differences that it was interesting, shall we say. I'm going to hand it over to Toby in a second just to talk about the latest workshop where we went a little bit one step further. But before I do that, I just want to shout out that we've got the talk coming up, so please scan the QR code and join us and register at OSFF, as well as the workshop link there as well. Please come and join us. And of course, the shout out to come and join our community call, hosted every 2 weeks on Mondays. We've got a few members there now discussing this problem, crunching through it. So now would be a good time to start as we're just kicking off. I'll hand over to Toby to talk about the latest.
And a quick call out, Aaron prepared a nice QR code with all the links here. So you can just scan one QR code and get all the links.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'll just mention the nature of the workshops we've done so far. So we were very much in the sort of forming stages, and are getting to the end of that now, as Aaron said, where we can articulate the problem. Very excited that there's lots of potential solutions, and we're forming that, getting the sort of website together, and moving them on from forming into actually more action orientated work. As Aaron said, we want to define the catalog, the risks and mitigations, and really work towards a common taxonomy and the ubiquitous language here, so that development engineering groups talk the same language as our compliance and audit colleagues, and really push this further. So the workshops that we've hosted so far have just been focused on that. The next ones are focused on specific controls, building out the catalog, the website, and so on. And then just, if I may, one quick observation we had in these groups were that with the advent of or such momentum around cloud and AI, it's really great to see FINOS establishing the standards, the governance frameworks and common control type stuff. And we reflected on, we haven't done that collectively as an industry for the basics, for the fundamental stuff around the supply chain, software delivery, and all these things. So if that's something that interests you, as Aaron said, we would absolutely love to have as many people as possible contribute to this work, and would love to see you in New York and in subsequent workshops and working sessions we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Toby and Aaron. And just as a big shout out to the SDLC Controls Framework Group and the DevOps Automation SIG, it's been a long time coming in terms of discussion, and they've really hit the ground running in terms of getting started in a way that's been really impressive. A big thank you to the whole group there. Next, let's head over to Tabitha and Chris from the GitProxy group for an update.
Hi, as Carl said, I'm Tabitha with G Research. I'm in the open source team there. I'd like to share an update about GitProxy. The challenge that many firms face is that trying to adhere to the security and compliance requirements during development creates a ton of friction for engineers and your developers as they're contributing to open source or attempting to contribute to open source. And GitProxy is a way that was created to solve exactly that problem, enforcing your security policy, enforcing your compliance, your audit checks, layering that on top of a process that looks very familiar to an open source developer. So it does this in line as a pre-commit check. So before anything's added to the repository itself, it can go through all of your required scans, all of those, any of those common controls that we were just hearing about from the other groups can be implemented. It's highly customizable. I wanted to just give you a bit of a history about the project itself. In 2020, it was donated to FINOS by Citi, and it received some modest interest and contributions early on. In 2023, there was some renewed interest in the project as they brought on a new maintainer to the project. In 2024, you could see that the Citi Hackathon generated a ton of interest and a bunch of new contributions, particularly in investing into the plugin system for GitProxy. And at this point now, since the start of 2025, the contributions have nearly tripled over where they were before. We've renewed our bi-weekly community meetings. The next one is on next Monday, October 6th. The QR code is on the screen if you'd like to join us, and I really hope you do. At this point, we have 5 active organizations investing in GitProxy to be able to enable their internal engineers and developers to contribute to the open source that they run their business on. Those organizations, Control Plane for working for Citigroup, my organization at G Research, NatWest, Cube Research and Technology, and Royal Bank of Canada. And I do believe that there is a case study with RBC that explores more about GitProxy if you'd like to learn more that way. Since 2020, that started 2025, the project has added 3 new maintainers, Juan Escalada with G Research, Chris West with NatWest, and Jack Kelly, Control Plane, contributing on behalf of Citigroup. At this point, I'd like to hand it over to Chris, project maintainer, to discuss some of our features, fixes, and our path to version 2 of GitProxy.
Thank you, Tabitha. Slide, please. What we've done with all that contribution since February is to expand support in GitProxy for other SCM providers. It was primarily focused on GitHub before, but it now supports governing contributions into GitLab and bare Git servers. We've done that by reducing some of our reliance on the GitHub API, so we can work with emails and really anything that you contribute into the Linux Foundation or just about any other open source project. There's been a huge amount of work from particularly G Research, but other contributors, bringing our test coverage up and helping to improve some of the functionality in the application. So we can pass more types of push. We audit log everything. So if you're trying to cover what projects can be ingressed through the proxy, it works in both directions. We've improved the performance, made it applicable to much larger repositories, and done some quality of life things for your OSPO as well. For example, we can reconfigure the system, we can manage it more easily when it's in production. There's been a huge amount of work on its dependencies, maintaining its security, improving its stability, etc. That's always ongoing work for an open source project. But as we move on into version 2, there's a load of new features that are well underway as well. So we're going to support Git plus SSH for the first time, in addition to just over HTTP. We'll be able to push tags. The whole project has been converted to TypeScript. And there's a bunch of extra functional pieces we want to add, like email notifications, review rejections, etc. There are also contributors interested in starting to govern more of the sort of interactions with GitHub as well, issues, PR, raising PRs, creating forks, governing comments, etc. So if there are topics that interest you, perhaps from the point of view of an open source project office, or even contributors within an organization having trouble with controls, come along and have a chat to us at one of the community meetings. They run every 2 weeks, or check out our repository, QR codes up there where you can raise an issue or a discussion. Come and tell us about what you want to do with something like GitProxy, how it might help unlock open source contribution in your organization.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris and Tabitha, for that great update. Much appreciated. And last, and certainly not least, an update from about COM from Matthew Bain.
Thanks, Carl. If we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. Yeah, we've had an incredibly busy 2025. The culmination of our achievements so far is certainly the Zoom background that you can see behind me, but that wouldn't have been possible without all of the things that you can see on screen. Those that have been following us will know that COM, as part of the Architecture as Code working group, also came out of the DevOps Automation SIG. And the COM specification has been in development for over 18 months now. We gained incubating project status back in March, and that has enabled us to really accelerate. And we were able to release version 1 of the specification in August, alongside version 1 of the command line interface, which really helps you to work with the COM model. So that has been huge, and it seems that we're just accelerating since then. Last month, we released the Copilot chat mode. This allows you to use Copilot as your author for COM. It surprised most of us that many people don't like to write JSON. And so this really allows you to just chat away and build that with really an expert agent. If you want to try that out, use our latest command line interface, which you can install from NPM. And that will allow you to install the COM chat mode into any repository you'd like to work with. Alongside that, we've got several more tools in active development. COM Hub is a visualizer and Maven Central type repository for COM artifacts that is being rolled out in some organizations right now. We've deployed a widget framework, which allows you to build documentation over the top of your model. This is very much around the intent that we're not asking developers to do more, rather we're asking them to be more efficient. And so this allows us to interrogate the model and build the types of documentation, including diagrams, tables, lists that might otherwise have been built manually in a Visio or in a PowerPoint. And a VS Code extension in development, which, to again emphasize how fast it's moving, it's actually on our sort of Q4 and beyond to publish that to the Microsoft Marketplace. We actually published it a few days ago, and we've already released 4 versions since. If you'd like to try our VS Code plugin, which allows you to live visualize your model or indeed markdown files that you're building using the widget framework, go and check that out. Alongside the version 1 release, we were fortunate to get an article in CIO Dive. You'll see the QR code on the screen if you'd like to go and read that. Really about part of the journey of why we built this, and I think that will resonate with a lot of people, whether you're involved in the current project or another project. I think there's a lot of background there so that will make sense. And you'll see some quotes from people at Morgan Stanley and Olivier, amongst others. There's been a couple of presentations this year. We were able to have a couple of presentations at OSFF in London and at API Days London, which went down really well. And to give some scale of the impact that COM's been having so far, this has already supported over 2,000 automated deployments since we've gone into the version 1. So that's really, really great. Looking beyond Q4 and into next year, we've got multiple sessions coming up at OSFF in New York. Many of the maintainers will be there, so do come and say hi. We're starting to collaborate with the Common Cloud Controls and AI Governance Framework, looking at how we can use the COM model to capture the controls that those groups have put such hard work into so that we can tie them directly into architecture models. And we're continuing to do a huge bunch of outreach to FINOS members and vendors. Several folks on this call and beyond are getting involved, but we are absolutely looking for people to come and use, contribute. If you've got any interest, if you're hearing this for the first time and it sparks an interest, please do reach out to me. You've got a link to our COM repository there. We also have office hours every Thursday at 3:30 London time for anyone that wants to get involved in actively contributing. And we have a monthly working group call that's a bit more introductory and we'll give more of an update on what we're doing. And that's on the 4th Tuesday of every month. You'll find details both in the community calendar and in our issues. We will be looking to also set up a hosted Calm hub for people to be able to try out and for us to be able to publish sort of common artifacts into so that people can get a bit more hands-on. As I say, the VS Code extension publishing to the marketplace is already out of date because we're now already there. So come and get involved. Thanks, Carl.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Matt. And I'll say personally, Calm was the first project that I really got involved with starting at FINOS, and seeing them hit the V1 milestone last month was an incredibly proud moment for me. And echoing a little bit more what Matt said, I just want to talk about the level of ecosystem collaboration. So I mentioned at the beginning of this section that there was some thematic resonance between the different topics that we had today. It's been incredible seeing CCC working with Calm, working with SDLC controls, working with DevOps automation, with GitProxy, how these groups are working together to common solutions for common problems. The level of kind of collaboration happening on these calls is you really need to see them to believe them. So make sure you check out calendar.finos.org and come join our calls. With that, I'm going to hand over to Kendall for some save dates.
Do you mind if I jump in before we just want to echo what you just said? It feels, going back to our trajectory in the last few years, when we started receiving contributions from large organizations, it was very much disconnected projects with each other. Think about Legend, Walls, even FTC3, they all solved a different problem. It was very interesting stuff, but it was hard to connect them. What I see right now, especially if you think about even the progression of our schedule today, is that you got building blocks like common cloud controls, like the AI governance framework, like now SDLC controls. And then you have the sort of glue projects, which I'm really looking forward to, Calm being one that could bring those things all together. GitProxy, where you potentially can implement some of those controls on the SDLC side of things. Going back to how we build ROI, it's not just through, this is an open source community, it's not just through sort of products, but it's really through this sort of organic combination of projects that we're starting now to see more and more happening as all the financial institutions can collaborate. Our community goals are growing, our events are growing. This point-to-point connectivity is something amazing. And I want to thank all the maintainers for bringing this to life and believing in this vision. Sorry, just wanted to add a bit of emotional aspect to the goal. So thank you, folks.
Thank you, Gab. That was what I wanted to say, but much better. With that, handing over to, and I guess before we hand over to Kendall, a big round of virtual applause to all our presenters today. Thank you for taking the time to get the slides together and get the presentations together and taking the time to update the community. We couldn't have these community calls without you. So thank you very much. All right, over to Kendall.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah, this has all been really great stuff. So if you want to go to the next slide, I'm here just to remind you yet again of what you've already heard, also with a few other things. I'm sure you've noticed that the Talk Candidacy nominations has gone live, and that deadline is October 3rd. So make sure to check that out if you are interested in nominating yourself or someone from your organization. If you have questions or need more information, wonder if we can grab this link from the slide and put it in the chat real quick. It's the repo, the talk repo. And then also, obviously, you all know about OSFF New York that is coming up in later this month. Just yet another reminder that your member codes will expire on October 7th. So make sure to use those codes. And if you don't have your code, then email osff@finos.org and we're happy to grab that code for you. And then lastly, next year, we will have an open gold seat on the FINOS governing board. So we'll be launching an election probably around February, March of next year. So look forward to that. Back to you, Carl.
Just want to add on the TOC side of things. You heard from Eddie before. Eddie is our chair of the TOC, who also sit on the board. Matt, who you heard from Calm, also sit on our TOC. I just want to send a shout out to the Technical Oversight Committee. It's a fundamental part of our community and effectively the technical counterpart to the governing board. It's probably one of the most complex but high responsibility jobs that we have in the community. So if you are an active contributor of FINOS or you are a member of FINOS, please consider applying for the candidacy. It closes in 2 days. This is a really good sort of step forward for you in sort of your personal open source journey. but also for us, it's an important role that, again, will shape how our community grows over the next few years, both in terms of the existing projects and the new projects that hopefully you can help us bring into the FINOS fold. The link is now there in the chat. You have 2 days to put for your candidacy to see some of those coming through.
Thanks, Gab. And with that, just to reiterate, you've heard them all many times, but our calls to action, make sure you register, particularly if you're a member, October 7th to get your free tickets. Everyone else, check out the schedule and you can register on the OSFF website. And we do have the hackathon, which I hope to see many New York-based developers participating in. The deadline for that is October 5th. And with that, I think we can, and another call to action, just a reminder, I think particularly with this large audience that we have today, contribution is not just code. We have training and certification. You can join project meetings, join SIG meetings. We have a talent acceleration group, and we have this link here for good first issues. So if there are things that you wanted to hear about, this looks at all projects that you want to get involved in, but you don't know where to start. The best place to look is this good first issues page. So with that, and here's a sneak peek of on the last QR code, we have the Get Learning. Here's a sneak peek of the learning tracks that we have available that people can participate in.
Sorry for sneaking those slides in, Carl.
I'm glad we have them.
Feels like I might have slightly surprised you at the last minute, but I guess I can add some color and pretend like we prepared this. Just want to call out here, you guys probably all know our first trainings that we launched on open source readiness and the certifications. There are obviously member benefits there, but I just want to also send a shout out to the folks who helped us build the CDM training. The CDM training had over 500 or 600, I think, enrollees as of today in less than a year. It is the course that has seen the most uptake over the last year. So if you don't know what the CDM is, this is, again, free training and a great introduction, again, just to get sort of your basic understanding of what the CDM and what you can do with it. This is a project that is very much on the rise, and we're seeing it adopted beyond digital regulatory reporting in use cases like collateral settlement and so on and so forth. Make sure you take a look at that as well.
Thank you, Gab.
We even have 3 minutes for Q&A.
So yeah, if anyone now has are there any questions from the Q&A box or from the Zoom chat?
So I've addressed a few of them from the Q&A box. There were questions around joining the hackathon on the chat that might have been addressed again. Yeah, there are people asking for the slides, so we will be sharing the slides.
And the video as well.
And the video as well. Let me see if there's anything else. I don't see any other questions. But this is your time not to be shy. Obviously, last year we had over 1,000 people registered for OSFF. Hopefully this time around we can have over 1,000 people attending. So I know we talked a lot about members being able to join for free, depending on their tier. If you're looking to join and you're not a member, please reach out obviously try to register. If price is an issue, please reach out at OSSF@finos.org and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, so there is one question from Perry for someone new to FINOS. Where's the place to start to get familiar?
So I would say that slide, if you go back to that slide that Carl shared with the 4 call to action, is probably the good one from a developer perspective. We have a similar one more from a business perspective, someone that wants to understand where the value lies from a business side of things. We also have a get involved page, which admittedly is a little outdated, but it brings together, I'm just putting it in the chat now, which really brings together the notion of good first issues, how to join projects. So that's a really good place to start. If you are more the reading type of person, which you want to learn how the community functions, then our community website, community.finos.org, is definitely a good place to start. And if you start that repo, you'll see that over the next few weeks and months, we're going to make quite a bit of changes and consolidation as the TOC is really stepping up in refining our project lifecycle and the expectations for projects that join FINOS. So those are definitely two good places to start, if that makes sense. And definitely join OSFF. It's a great place to start. That's the intangible of the all-way track at OSFF is really, one of the most energizing things, definitely for us and for the feedback that we get from the community. So hope to see you there.
And with that, do we have any more questions?
Oh. So.
All right, with that, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you for everyone for staying for the full call. And this ends the Q3 All Community Call update. Thank you very much. Hope to see you all at OSFF and on project calls.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.